flowers to see Miss Jean. She lives in a house that is mostly green, except for the chimney and windows and walls, and one or two places just down the halls. And it's filled with rabbits and newts and snails, and fat little puppies that wag their tails, and a whale and a tiger and elephants too.
Well, maybe not elephants.
Hi. Did you like my pretty bouquet? Have you ever wished that you could take pretty flowers when they're fresh from the garden or fresh from the flower shop or fresh from the field and make them last for a long, long time? Well, today, my friend Mrs. Lyon is coming, and she's going to tell us how to do it. Hope, have you ever wished that?
Yes.
Do you have any flowers near you that you could make a bouquet out of?
Yes.
Where, in the field or in your yard?
In our yard.
Okay. How about you, Todd?
Yes.
What kind of flowers do you have?
Tulips.
Oh, they're beautiful. They come in such pretty colors, too. This bouquet belongs to my friend Marcia, and she lent it to me just for today. One thing about dried flowers is they're very fragile. You know what that word means? Delicate. That you have to handle them very carefully or they'll break. So she very carefully brought this over so we could look at it, because it's such a nice arrangement. The colors of the flowers just bring out the colors of the vase. Did you notice that? Orange and yellow and brown and white. Do you see anything there you recognize? Some of these things you can grow in your garden, like baby's breath. That's one of my favorite flowers. It has such a nice name. That's real, but it's been painted. Can you see that it's been spray painted to make it look really white? And here's a yellow zinnia that's made out of paper, so that's sort of fooling you. But most of them are real. How about these brown things that are sticking out that look like feathers? You recognize those?
Ferns.
Right. See, they were green when they were alive, but when they dry, they're brown. They're still pretty for this kind of arrangement. And this one has a nice name, yarrow, like narrow. I have a tiny little bouquet around my neck. These are real. These are fresh flowers. But maybe when Mrs. Lyon comes, I can get her to give me a few tips on how to make them last, how to dry them out. This little white one is the color of snow, and it sort of droops over. Can you think of a good name for it, Hope? Snowdrop, because it looks like a drop of snow. And this tiny little yellow one is an iris. It only grows about that high. Very tiny little flower. You have to practically get down on your hands and knees to see it. A special iris called Dutch iris Danfordiii. But I was really surprised when I saw how little it was. And keep them fresh in a little vase. Do you have any flowers inside your house? Oh, there, that must be Mrs. Lyon. Come in. Let's go meet her. Hi, Jody. What a beautiful bouquet. Isn't it pretty? Have to watch Aurora and be sure he doesn't take any bites out of it. He loves to chew up flowers. I think you can set them. Can you set them right there?
Sure.
Fine. These are my friends, Hope and Todd, Mrs. Lyon. You can remember her name, can't you? Because it's like an animal at the zoo. Well, we just took a look at the beautiful dried arrangement that Marcia brought over, and we're looking forward to what you have to tell us about all the ways of drying flowers. I know it's a very complicated subject, and lots of books have been written about it, but I know that whenever I meet you in the summertime, you're always saying, well, I'll take some of this and some of that and take it home and get it ready to make the dried arrangements with.
It's a lot of fun.
And these are some of your wares.
Yes, we have various types of flowers here.
How have these been? Let's take a look at these big ones first, and maybe Hope can recognize that kind of flower. You've got enough so we can remember what I said about them being very fragile. Do you have anything like these in your garden?
Unfortunately, they don't usually smell good after they're dried.
These roses?
Well,
No.
Roses, sometimes roses might look like that when they spread out flat. Have you ever heard of, well, you tell them, Jody.
It's a zinnia.
Zinnia? They're very easy to grow, and they come in such beautiful colors.
They're good flowers for children to grow. They grow nicely.
And how were these
That's
dried?
Well, now, these zinnias were all dried in silica gel overnight in the oven.
Hmm. That sounds like a fast way.
It is. It's a good way to do it. If you have an oven that will stay on and not get too hot, not over about 150 degrees, you can cover the flowers with silica gel in a pan and just put it in the oven for about 8 hours, and the next day take them out and they're all dried.
They're all ready.
Ready to go.
That's all done.
These are zinnias too. See how different they are from
little
those
babies.
great big ones?
Now, does that method change the color at all? Are
Yes, it does somewhat. It depends upon the flower. Some change more than others do.
How about these that are hanging up? How did you do those?
Well, now they just dry by being hung like that.
up in the
These,
attic? Or
Yes, they should be in a dry place in a spare bedroom or an attic. It's better than putting them in the basement, for instance. This is called a bulrush, and this is a snowball by Burnham. You can dry that when it's green that way, or wait till it gets white later on in the summer, and just take them home and hang them on a clothesline or a hook, something like that, and after about 2 or 3 weeks they're dry.
That's the easiest way, isn't it?
Yes.
The quickest. I mean, it's not the quickest, but it's the easiest.
It's the easiest way.
But you can't do all flowers that way.
No, if you hung up zinnias, they would just wilt and die.
Fall to pieces. So
Already
we found out.
now.
Yeah. Well, maybe better put it back in the tray. Hope. If you remind me, after Mrs. Lyon tells us about drying flowers, she says you can use some of these little flowers to make a little bouquet to take home. I bet your mother would be thrilled to get a little bouquet.
My mother has dry flowers.
Does she have some?
She has.
Well, I bet she'd like to have one that you made, too.
We made pictures out of dry flowers.
Oh, how did you get the flowers dry, Todd?
We usually just put them between wax paper, or some kind of towel, and press them between books.
Is that one way?
Good, yes. We have some ferns there that were done that way.
My goodness, these are really, really big ferns. They're almost like fans.
That looks like a great big leaf.
Right.
You can press ferns or leaves, and you can do flowers too. They're pretty pressed.
These are bracken ferns, I think. That some people used to wear little bunches around their neck to bring them good luck or chase away the evil spirits. Yes. Oh, that's nice. So that's pressing is one way. Good, Todd. I'm glad you mentioned that. And hanging.
Hanging. They can also be pressed with an iron. You can put a leaf or fern, I guess even a flower, between 2 pieces of wax paper and press it with a fairly cool iron. You can do it more quickly that way.
I think I've seen children making placemats that way, sometimes with the fall leaves and things like that. That's good. Well, how about this beautiful bouquet you brought? Is there anything in there that
Yes.
you could show us how to dry?
Yes. But one other thing I could point out is that there is another kind of flower called an everlasting,
Oh.
or a straw flower, that can just be dried naturally. It can be hung. And they're nice because they keep their colors nicely and will last for years and years.
And you have so many different colors. I didn't realize there were so many colors of everlastings. When I was a little girl, we called them straw flowers.
Yes. Well, these are straw flowers, and these, the pink one here. And those blue ones are a thing called salvia or blue sage. They can be dried by hanging, too.
Why don't you each take a close look at one of those and feel the square stem there. I'm always trying to get in a plug for the mint family here. Do you recognize them with a square stem? Do they smell minty when they're fresh at all?
A bit.
That is lovely.
They have a nice pungent fragrance. I don't know exactly whether it's minty or not.
Did you grow these?
Yes. They're very easy to grow, too.
Well, maybe someday I'll come over and borrow a plant, or if you have a spare one. I've always admired these. Oh, and there's a dear little tiny
Little rosebud.
rose. How was that done? Was that done?
Now, that was done in silica gel.
Silica gel.
And here's another larger rose.
But all the straw flowers were done just by hanging.
Yes. The marigolds, this is a marigold, are done in silica gel, too.
You recognize that one, Hope?
Yeah.
Almost everybody knows marigolds. Oh, what's another important thing I know that's important? When do you pick the flowers? Just when they're looking their best? Or
Just before they're looking their
Just
best
before
is
they're-
better. I found that was especially true with the straw flowers. Pick them when they're still a little bit immature.
Or
And,
is this one that you waited too long on?
Yes, if you wait too long, then you get that look, which isn't really very pretty.
It turns sort of inside out because the
Mhm.
seeds are ready. Whoops! Doesn't want to show us its face. See that, Hope? How it's all fuzzy inside and not as pretty as this one. That's still all nice and tight. Goodness. So that's important to remember. Don't wait till the last minute. Keep an eye on them and get them while they're nice and fresh.
And, of course, there are a lot of flowers in the fields. Here's a nice little thing, this
Oh.
Japanese lantern or Chinese lantern. I think it's a physalis.
I think my father used to eat those.
I do.
The little nut and little
It's
berry
good.
inside.
The little berry inside is delicious.
Not when they're green, though, right? Don't you
Mhm.
wait when they're green?
You
Oh, I
can.
thought you had to wait till they were brown.
But they're a little bit sour when they're green. You can wait a little longer.
Ground cherries. he
Ground
called it.
cherries,
Ground
yes.
cherries. So that's wild, and this is too, isn't it?
Yes, that's just a little piece of goldenrod, good old goldenrod. Don't know what you'd do without that. And the Queen Anne's lace and wild yarrow. There are a lot of pretty grasses, too, that are nice to pick. I think we had some.
Oh, yes. This is one of my favorites, the barnyard grass. I don't know what you call it.
I don't have a name. I just...
Barnyard grass because it's named after its Latin name refers to the spur that a rooster has on its
Oh,
foot,
really?
on its leg. You know, have you ever looked at a rooster's leg and seen that spur that he uses to fight other roosters? It's supposed to look like that. And you had Oh, yes, you have a nice bunch of... You even have a sedge here.
Should bring them over to you and find out what they are.
Well, the main thing, when you're doing arrangements, you look for different forms and
Yes.
textures. Reach out, and wouldn't you like to feel that nice fuzzy one, Hope? That's, well, people call it pampas grass, but it's
Oh,
really
really?
miscanthus. Grasses. Well, would you...
This is an interesting one, too. I
Oh,
think the children
yes.
might be interested in that.
Yeah, they're
Do you have a name for them? Could you guess? What does it look like?
little pieces of thin glass.
Well, that's true. It does. It's called money plant, silver dollar plant. It's supposed to look sort of like.
Honesty.
Or honesty.
And that's not really the flower, is it? It's the seed. Or what's the flower
Well-
is a little purple flower.
That's right, yes. These are just the seed pods, and they come covered with a little flat husk that can be just pulled off, you see, and then the seed falls out.
I've planted those, and it takes 2 years before
Yes.
you can get some nice money of your own. And even though it isn't, you can't buy anything with it, it's pretty to look at. Well, would you show us how you do some of these fresh flowers?
Sure.
See,
Happy to.
is this your pan?
Yes.
What you need?
Well, I like to use silica gel. Other people use sand, borax, kitty litter. I've seen beautiful flowers dyed in kitty litter.
Well, plenty of things to choose from. And this you can use over and over again. I understand it's a
Yes.
little expensive when you go out to buy it.
It is.
What do you think, Aurora? You know what Aurora likes to do with flowers? Just chew them up.
Looks like little crystals.
Yes, it does.
I think that's right.
I don't know what it's made of.
Well,
Maybe put a little bit over there for you to examine, Todd. You know. And we're going to try
Carnation here has a nice wiry stem, but when we do it, we don't leave the stems on very long because we can always put a wire in. You can either do it now,
Sure.
or you can often put the wire in, just splice the wire on afterwards. But just to give you an idea, you can just stick a wire in there. And then when it dries, the stem gets smaller and holds the wire quite firmly in place.
And you have your handy wire
cutters.
snippers.
Yes. Now, you could put this sort of thing face down like that. Can you see, Todd? Or you could lay it on its side. This one doesn't have a very pretty side there anyhow, so you might just put it down on its side. And take silica gel and start pouring it all around. You want to be careful and not just pour a whole lot of it right on top, or it'll flatten the petals.
You have one mashed carnation.
Yes. Although it's very lightweight, the silica gel.
Now, carnations are one of the things that is easy to do this way, or good,
Yes.
works well
Looks
this
like
way.
a flower coming up out of the snow.
Yes.
What's your favorite flower?
I've often wondered that. I have several that I really love. I love daffodils. I think I love the spring blooming bulbs the best of all because at the end of the long, cold winter, I'm just so happy to see flowers.
There's a carnation for you to smell, Hope. Some carnations nowadays are so modern they don't have any smell.
I know.
Sort of disappointing.
Too bad, isn't it? Now, I haven't completely covered it, but that doesn't matter. At this point, here's a tulip I can try.
Our friend Mr. Wingrat gave us his flowers.
Better not ask for them back.
He has a little florist shop, and he had some leftover flowers that he said he would let us try. So maybe if some of them turn out, we'll have to take them down and show him. I would never have thought you could do tulips. They look so delicate.
I can't guarantee that they'll come out the same color they've gone in. They might change some, but they often come out a pretty color anyhow.
Now, do you fill up the middle?
Yes.
With the...
But as you go along, some people take something like this to sort of steady the flower. As you go along, you see, you make sure that there's enough silica gel underneath the petals to hold them in place when you begin to pour into the middle. And just keep working it in there. It doesn't take very long. The more you do it, the easier it becomes.
How long have you been interested in this?
For 3 years.
Looks like some of what she's doing, doesn't it, children?
Now you see, as I cover this one, then I can also cover up that one.
So you got a miniature sand dune there. Well, when your tulips come up, Todd, maybe you can experiment with one or two. It'd be fun to have tulips in the wintertime.
The silica gel is sold commercially under the name Flower Dry. You may have seen it advertised that way. It has instructions on the box, but I think the instructions probably don't tell about how to bake it in the oven overnight.
That just speeds it up.
That wasn't my idea. It was pointed out to me by...
And this, you can use it over and over again.
Mhm.
Right. You can't
And then,
tell.
of course, being in the oven overnight dries out the silica gel, too, so that you're ready to go with it the next day if you want. I would ordinarily fill the pan
Yeah,
with
well,
flowers.
We're just doing a quick demonstration. And didn't you start some last night?
Yes,
so
I
that
did.
you could show the children how it comes out. Things are getting crowded here.
Well, that's right. I can pour this right into that.
Oh,
pan.
okay. And see,
Now, when you start to take the flowers out, you don't want to just take the flower by the stem and pull, or you might pull all the petals off and you wouldn't have a
you
pretty
have to
flower.
start all over again.
So you just start gently pouring, and then hang on to your stem. I'll get this out. I'll see if anyone knows what it is.
Oh, I bet they might be able to identify that one. Oh,
It's just like paper.
yes, I was just going to say. Do you recognize that? It lost a little bit of its red color, but it certainly still looks like what it's supposed to be. Well, let them think about that a minute while you uncover your other treasures here.
All
I'm
right.
anxious to see them.
Mine too. It's always fun because you always try new things and see how they come out.
And this is something that you had blooming in your house, too.
Yes, these are from a house plant. That's a leaf.
From the same
It goes
thing.
with that flower. Oops. Well, they didn't come out as pretty a color as when they went in, but still it's a color.
Now, these might remind you of something that you might have in your yard in the summertime. They're in the same family with something that lots of people have. Take a look, hold it very gently, and look down into it and see if it reminds you of anything. When I was a little girl, we used to make dolls out of those flowers.
Oh, I did too.
Like ladies with big hoop skirts.
Now here's one that I wired ahead of time. And you see the flower can be held on its side like that, or if you want, you can just straighten the wire and put the flower up straight.
Easier to fit into an arrangement.
Yes.
Well, have you recognized this one yet?
It's a pretty long name.
Guess you'll have to tell them, Jody.
That's a poinsettia.
And these, I'm sure they won't know the house plant, but they look like, haven't you ever seen a hollyhock in the summertime? And what do you call this kind?
A butylon,
A butylon
I guess.
that
I'm
grows,
not very
grows
good
in your house.
The
house plant.
poinsettias are white, too.
They can be white or pink or red.
They mostly bloom around Christmas.
Right, but if you get one at Christmas, you can keep it for a long time, or you can, by putting them in a certain number of hours of, giving them a certain number of hours of light, you can make them bloom anytime you want.
That's what I understand.
You can have poinsettias in the summer or the spring. So, well, isn't that amazing to see what came out?
Did you feel these? Feel how much they are like paper?
And this was another trick you were going to show us, wasn't it?
yes.
What to do, how to keep your flowers after you get them out when they're so fragile.
This is a block of styrofoam. I guess you know what that is, don't you? So then, if you want, if you have a flower that's wired, you can just keep it like that until you get ready to put it into a container. And if you have a flower with a stiff stem, I think this will go in the styrofoam. You see? It's a nice way to carry them around. That's a little argyratum.
Perfect color scheme.
Yes,
Make like a bouquet on there.
you could. Maybe you'd like to.
Yeah, speaking of bouquets, would you like if made the children use a few of your flowers?
Sure.
To take home? There's a little, I just fixed up a little vase for you, a little fast vase out of a lid. And here are the flowers in the trays. See if you can find a few to make a little bouquet to take home. Some of these little tiny zinnias might be good. Well, seeing is believing. I ran around and gathered a few flowers and put them in sand, but they didn't turn out nearly as beautifully as this. And then my cats sort of nibbled on them. So
Yes, I think they do that.
you have,
In fact, cats will nibble on the arrangements after they're done and are sitting around the house, too.
how about giving Aurora a daisy out of the bouquet so he can have happy memories of your visit?
Is this too long?
Yeah, just break it off. He likes the petals best,
Oh, I see.
don't you, Aurora?
That's a lovely color with you.
Yes. Are daisies good to dry?
Yes,
See,
they do quite well.
let's look at an iris and one of those big chrysanthemums to show the kinds of things that would be very
Hard to dry.
Yes, very hard to dry, but they're fun to look at. Some of Mr. Wingrat's beautiful spidery chrysanthemums and a beautiful iris. Boy, that's sure a lot bigger than my little dwarf, isn't
Yes,
it?
it's same family, isn't it?
But these would be very, very difficult to keep safe in the silica gel.
Yes, anything that is a sort of pulpy substance or has too large a petal, you find is hard to dry.
How are you doing, children? Oh, they've got the idea. Something tall in the middle and something little around the edges.
Yes.
And there's about this little piece of goldenrod, so you'll have something wild and something tame. You have room for babies in you, Todd? Oh, you had some nice baby's breath that hasn't been sprayed,
Oh, yes.
so the children can see the difference. And that's nice to fill in all the empty places in your arrangement. May they have a little of this?
Oh, sure. And that dries by hanging, too.
Whoops.
In fact, you can bring it in and put it in a vase of flowers and then just wait. Pretty soon it's dry and just take it out of that arrangement. Use it for dried flowers.
Just stick a
Wonderful
little
stuff.
baby's breath in, hope to fill up the empty spaces. You know, some people arrange dried flowers and make a lot of money doing it.
Yes.
So might be something to think about while you're young and and like to do pretty things.
Well, they are nice. They're real things, and yet they last a long
They
time.
last. You don't have to worry about watering them.
That's right.
Oh, well, I think you both have quite a flair using different colors. And then I find that sort of nice when you go on field trips. You know, even if you think you've finished your bouquet, when you go out for a walk, you always find one more little thing.
Yes.
That might just do the final touch.
When we do arrangements, we often just do them in sand. We use dampish sand.
Oh,
Stick the flowers in it, and then when the sand dries, it's almost like cement. It just holds the flowers in place beautifully.
good. And that doesn't cost a cent. How about giving Aurora a tulip? You seem to enjoy that daisy so much.
All right.
I didn't expect you to be the chief parrot feeder when I invite you.
It's fascinating.
But thank you very much for coming, Mrs. Lyon.
Thank
Hope
you.
you'll come back to Hodgepodge Lodge again.
Enjoyed being here.
I hope you will look around. Maybe you have some dried flowers already at your house. And if you don't, take a walk to the florist shop and see if you can see some there. And if you still don't find any, go out in the fields and see what's still there and make your own dried arrangement. Goodbye, and come back very soon again.
This program was made possible through funds contributed by members of the Maryland Center for Public Broadcasting.
Pre-recorded in the studios of the Maryland Center for Public Broadcasting.